And hello, everyone, and welcome back to our election videos where I take a look at the Senate elections going on across America in 2026 and give you my thoughts, analysis, and predictions on the mood of the race. And today we are looking at the state of Oregon, a seat currently held by the Democratic Party and Senator Jeff Merkley. Merkley is currently in his third term. In 2020, Merkley's margin of victory was just slightly under 18%. In 2020, Joe Biden won the state of Oregon by 16%, so just a little bit behind the margin of victory for Merkley in his Senate race. And in 2024, Vice President Harris won the state of Oregon by 14%. Um, our Oregon, obviously, at the federal level, has shown a tendency to vote with the Democratic Party. The two nominees. The Democratic nominee is Senator Merkley. Prior to being elected to the Senate, Merkley served in the Oregon legislature, rising to the rank of Speaker of the House. When he was elected in 2008, Merkley defeated moderate Republican Gordon Smith. And in that election, he won election to the Senate in the Obama wave of 2008. Since coming to the Senate, Merkley has very definitely tapped out a liberal um, progressive record in the Senate, constantly being one of the most liberal members of the Democratic caucus. And he is currently a member of what is affectionately referred to as the Fight Club caucus. And these are members of the Democratic Party in the Senate who are opposed to Chuck Schumer's leadership. They believe Schumer and the current Democratic leadership is not leaning hard enough into the liberal flank of the party and disagree with Schumer and DSCC uh, campaign chairwoman Kristen Gillibrand's decision to lean heavily into primaries, not backing progressive nominees. And backing more conventional establishment candidates. They disagree with that tactic. And Merkley was the only member of the Senate in 2016 to endorse fellow Senator Bernie Sanders in his presidential campaign. There was some speculation that Merkley himself might have sought the Democratic nomination in 2020, but he did not. He sought re-election to the Senate, and of course, again, backed Sanders in that election. Merkley in 2020 had a pretty easy road to re-election. He faced a conspiracy theorist in that election, and as I said, easily made his way to re-election. He has had some notable moments in the Senate, both of them involving long Senate speeches. Drawing attention to issues he felt passionately about. But in the end, both of those speeches were for naught as the legislation he was speaking out against or the confirmation he was speaking out against ultimately passed. Um, so there is that. The Republican nominee is David Brock Smith. Mr. Smith is currently a state senator, first entering office in 2023. He is very much on the conservative right and is a 2020 election denier. Uh, he believed that the election was stolen. He believes that the people that attacked the Capitol on January 6th were justified instead of the domestic terrorists that they actually are. And he has spoke out in front of Greg Abbott's inhuman attacks on immigrants along the Rio Grande River. So Mr. Smith is definitely of the conservative right and a flame and wing of the Republican Party that is not often successful in statewide elections, but has found success in district level elections in places like Oregon and Washington State and parts of California. Um, but very much going to be an underdog in the election that we're about to speak about. In the primary, about 57% of Demo primary voters cast ballots in the Democratic primary, and about 42% cast votes in the Republican primary. How do I think this race is going to go? Look, barring anything unexpected, I think Senator Merkley is going to be elected to a fourth term. Um, and the challenge for Republicans in Oregon is the challenge that I've talked about that Democrats have in other states. It's just the partisan lean of the state is so heavily weighted in one favor that the other side really does not have that much of an opportunity. Um, Outside of Portland and Salem, and your college communities in Oregon, um, it's a very conservative state, but a majority of the population live in those areas of Portland and Salem. In your college enclaves, the population there is just greater than the population in other places. That's the name of the game. You have more voters, and those voters in those larger communities are very liberal, and the voters in rural Oregon are very conservative, and it creates an interesting politics. One of the purest examples of uh, right versus left that you'll see in the country. And generally, Oregon elects and has been electing very progressive candidates at the statewide level. Um, as I said, Merkley is in his third term. He was first elected in 2008, and he replaced a moderate Republican in Gordon Smith. If a Republican were ever be successful statewide again, I believe it would have to be a more moderate Republican and probably would not involve a federal election. I think Oregon Republicans have a small but better chance in the governor's race this year. It's a rematch between Tina Kotek and her 2022 opponent. And these federal elections for the Senate have become so nationalized. Obviously, it's a federal race, but a state that voted nearly 15% for Kamala Harris is not going to give Donald Trump an extra vote in the Senate, especially one that's an election denier and as conservative as David Brock Smith. Subsequently, Jeff Merkley hasn't really done anything to justify losing re-election to his very liberal constituency. So at the moment, I think Merkley is well on his way to re-election to a fourth term in the United States Senate. So that's all for now. We'll be back with another video in the coming weeks and days. See you then.